So, quick question. Did you get new clothes this year? A cozy sweater? A pair of socks? Maybe something your grandma knit with love and questionable color choices? Well, I hope so, because according to Icelandic folklore, if you didn't, there's a giant man-eating Christmas cat prowling around who would like to have a word. And by word, I mean you as an entree. Welcome back to the Waxenvein Ledger, where the folklore is dark, the creatures are hungry, and apparently even fashion can save your life. Today we're diving into the frosty world of Iceland's Yule Cat, a massive, glowing-eyed feline who doesn't care if you've been naughty or nice. He only cares whether you've upgraded your wardrobe. This legendary beast stalks the snowy countryside every Christmas, peeking through windows like a judgmental lint roller, hunting anyone who failed to score a new piece of clothing before Yule. Forget coal in your stocking. In Iceland, the real punishment was becoming a holiday snack. So bundle up, grab something wool-related, and let's step into the icy darkness where this feline folklore first prowled into being. Because this story, it's bigger, stranger, and fluffier than you think. Before we talk about the giant Christmas cat with a taste for the poorly dressed, we need to set the stage, because Iceland in winter is not just a little chilly, it's less winter wonderland and more, the sun has abandoned you, good luck out there. We're talking endless nights, brutal storms, and landscapes that look like they were designed specifically to humble humans. It's gorgeous, yes, but also the kind of cold that makes you question all your life choices, including why you ever complained about your heated blanket being too warm. For centuries, Icelandic families were basically locked in a snow globe of darkness and survival. Winter was more than a season, it was a full-time job. Travel was dangerous, food was scarce, and the weather could flip from light flurries to "we angered the old gods" without warning. Imagine trying to do your chores while knowing a storm could swallow your house whole. That was normal. So it makes sense that this was a world where stories mattered, not just for entertainment, but for teaching, warning, motivating. When you're stuck indoors for months at a time with nothing but wool to spin and an existential crisis to share with your neighbors, the mind drifts toward tales of trolls, spirits, monsters, and yes, cats the size of houses. When the world outside your door looks like a frozen void, stories stop being stories and start feeling like warnings you should probably take seriously. Winter in Iceland felt alive, shaping daily life the way a myth shapes a story. A looming presence. A reminder that nature had teeth long before the Yule Cat did. And when survival depends on everyone doing their part, you better believe a few spooky stories can keep a community running like a finely tuned loom. And speaking of looms, that brings us right to the creature who enforced winter productivity with more enthusiasm than any medieval boss. All right, now that we've set the mood with Iceland's survive or die winter ambiance, let's talk about the real star of the season, a gigantic man-eating Christmas cat with a built-in moral compass and the world's harshest dress code. According to Icelandic folklore, the Yule Cat, or Jólakötturinn, is not your average cozy fireplace feline. This thing is enormous, house-sized, window-peeking, snow-stalking. Basically, imagine a Norwegian forest cat, and then scale it up until it becomes a mild natural disaster. Its eyes glow through the darkness like twin moons, its whiskers are sharp enough to qualify as weapons, and its fur, long, thick, and dramatic enough to make every other winter creature rethink their self-esteem. And this massive cat prowls the countryside every Christmas Eve doing one very specific job, checking who did or did not receive new clothes for the holiday. Yes, clothes, not kindness, not purity of heart, just checking if you got a fresh holiday outfit this year. If you did, the Yule Cat casually moves along, probably judging your color palette but otherwise pleased. If you didn't, well, that's when things get a little crunchy. According to the legend, anyone without new clothing risks becoming the cat's seasonal snack. And it doesn't nibble, it fully commits to the bit. Folklore even says the cat would peek through windows, scanning every household like a furry holiday auditor. Children with torn, worn, or frayed clothes were especially at risk, so you can imagine how motivating this story was. In modern terms, it's like telling your kid, if you don't fold the laundry, a giant supernatural panther will eat you. Effective? Absolutely. Ethical? Debatable. Terrifying? 10 out of 10. Even the famous 1932 poem that shaped the modern version describes the Yule Cat as hungry, evil, and absolutely uninterested in mice. Nope, only humans. Big fan of humans, and only the ones who didn't get a new garment before Christmas. Honestly, the bar for survival has never been both higher and lower at the same time. So yes, while other cultures were warning kids about coal in a stocking, Iceland said, "Here's a cat roughly the size of your entire house, and it will absolutely eat you if you don't get a new pair of socks." But folklore always has a reason behind the madness. And trust me, this one is colder, deeper, and way more practical than you'd think. Now you might be wondering, why clothes? Why is this gigantic cosmic house cat acting like the world's grumpiest fashion inspector? Well, the answer takes us straight into medieval Iceland, where you didn't ask for cute clothes for fun, you needed clothing for survival. Back then, wool was everything. The economy, the winter wardrobe, the social structure, all of it revolved around sheep and the monumental task of turning their wool into something wearable before the cold set in. Every family member had a role: shearing, cleaning, spinning, weaving. If one person slacked off, you and your family risked freezing. Icelandic winters are not interested in your excuses. They're interested in whether you have functional clothing. So, yes, the legend of the Yule Cat was a spooky bedtime story, but more importantly, it was a motivational tool. It basically said, hey kids, if you don't help with the wool production, we will simply let the giant carnivorous cat handle the consequences. And honestly, that's one way to guarantee productivity. Workers who did their part in the wool trade were often rewarded with clothing, sometimes money, but more often garments. Those who didn't contribute? No clothes for you. And according to the legend, no clothes meant no future. The Yule Cat could sense whether you'd participated or not, like some kind of supernatural HR department with claws. Even the poem describes mothers spinning urgently at their wheels, making sure every child had something new to wear by Christmas: an apron, a sock, a pair of shoes, anything to keep that monster from sniffing around the house. This poem was about survival disguised as a festive tradition. The new garment was your golden ticket out of the feline food chain. So when you zoom out, the Yule Cat is less a random monster and more the embodiment of winter anxiety, community pressure, and the very real fear of entering the cold season unprepared. Iceland looked at its harsh reality and said, you know what this needs? A giant murderous cat metaphor. But the Yule Cat doesn't roam the winter night alone. It's actually part of a whole supernatural family with their own chaotic holiday agenda. Let's talk about the world's most dangerous Christmas clan. To understand the Yule Cat, you have to look at the shadow it comes from, a family of figures rooted so deeply in Icelandic winter folklore that they feel less like characters and more like forces of nature. First up, Grýla, the legendary Icelandic ogress and the Yule Cat owner. She's the matriarch of the whole winter nightmare. Grýla shows up in texts as far back as the 13th century, and her resume is impressive in the most alarming way. Most versions describe Grýla as a towering ogress wrapped in heavy furs, with tangled hair and a face shaped by centuries of winter. Not a horned fantasy monster, but something far more believable and far more frightening. Her specialty? Hunting down misbehaving children and hauling them away in a sack. She's like Santa, if Santa skipped the cookies and went straight to felony kidnapping. Grýla lives with her equally questionable husband, Lepalúthi, a man so famously lazy he contributes nothing to the operation except existing nearby. Honestly, he's the most relatable one in the whole mythos. And then there are their children, the Yule lads. 13 mischievous little troublemakers who visit Icelandic homes one by one in the days leading up to Christmas. Each has a signature personality trait that doubles as a minor crime. You've got spoon licker, window peeper, door slammer, sausage swiper. Imagine the world's least effective superhero team, but instead of saving the day, they steal your dinner and terrify your livestock. These lads deliver small gifts to well-behaved children, but if you misbehave, you might wake up to a potato in your shoe, which is still a better deal than getting dragged away by their mother. Now here's where the cat comes in. The Yule Cat acts as the family's massive furry enforcer. Once the Yule lads finish their 13-day mischief marathon, this colossal feline prowls the countryside looking for anyone who didn't get new clothes. It's the final act in Iceland's holiday folklore trilogy, a terrifying crescendo after weeks of pranks, warnings, and the lingering fear that Grýla might be lurking in the mountains. This entire cast of characters once symbolized the harshness of winter, the consequences of laziness, and the need for community effort. These weren't villains. They were cautionary tales wrapped in fur, horns, and deeply questionable parenting styles. And speaking of symbols, the Yule Cat's obsession with clothing reflects something much deeper about Icelandic culture and survival. You might look at the Yule Cat and think, okay, giant Christmas feline eats people without new clothes. Surely this is just a weird little holiday scare tactic. But underneath all the claws and glowing eyes, the story reflects something much deeper about Icelandic life and what winter demanded from its people. Surviving the cold season required everyone to contribute. Every thread spun, every garment woven, every ounce of wool prepared meant the difference between warmth and danger. A new sock wasn't just a sock. It was proof of effort, discipline, and community. That's the real heart of the legend. The Yule Cat isn't punishing fashion mistakes, it's enforcing survival. The cat becomes a symbol of winter itself, unforgiving, watchful, indifferent to excuses. If you slacked off or ignored your responsibilities, the consequences were harsh. Not supernatural cat harsh, but close enough that the metaphor hit home. And for children especially, the message landed loud and clear. Help your family. Take pride in your work. Appreciate what you're given. Gratitude kept you tied to the community that kept you alive. Over time, the legend softened, just like the Yule lads' transformation from chaotic trolls into charming, gift-giving figures. But hidden beneath the modern cuteness is a reminder of the bleak winters that shaped this culture. Winters where a single unfinished garment could mean a long, cold season ahead. The Yule Cat may feel dramatic by today's standards, but its symbolism is crystal clear. Prepare, contribute, and don't take the warmth in your life for granted. In a world where the cold was once a constant threat, stories like this weren't just told, they were needed. And as winter settled over Icelandic homes, these stories didn't stay in storybooks. They crept into songs, festivals, and modern retellings, where the Yule Cat still prowls, just in slightly more festive company. Even though the Yule Cat comes from a time when winter survival depended on wool and work ethic, this enormous feline didn't just fade into the folklore archives. Today, it prowls all over Icelandic culture, just with a little less eat the unprepared energy and a little more holiday mascot with an attitude. One of the biggest reasons the legend stayed alive is the 1932 poem by Jóhannes Ór Kotlum. That poem basically relaunched the Yule Cat into stardom, painting it as a massive, glowing-eyed predator with a very firm stance on winter apparel. Ever since, the image of the Yule Cat has stuck, a creature big enough to tower over rooftops, slinking through the snow while children proudly show off their new socks like tiny fashion warriors. From there, the Yule Cat clawed its way into music, books, and holiday celebrations. One of the most iconic modern references is Björk's cover of a song about the Yule Cat, which, if you've ever listened to her music, you know she understood the assignment perfectly. Iceland also loves to feature the cat in holiday displays, turning this once terrifying creature into a giant glowing sculpture or festive decoration. Nothing says Merry Christmas quite like a 30-foot cat reminding you to wear new clothes. You'll also find the Yule Cat in children's books, museum exhibits, and even holiday charity drives encouraging people to donate clothing. A surprisingly wholesome twist for a monster whose brand was originally seasonal devourer of the poorly dressed. The message has shifted from fear to generosity. Make sure everyone has something warm and the cat will keep its distance. Even outside Iceland, the Yule Cat has started gaining folklore fame. Every year it pops up in online myth discussions, holiday creature countdowns, and cozy horror lists, right alongside Krampus, Grilla, and other winter legends that walk the line between festive and frightening. It turns out people love a good story with teeth, especially when those teeth belong to a giant supernatural house cat. So yes, the Yule Cat has mellowed out a bit over the last century, but it still carries that old glacial chill, a reminder of the winters that shaped it and the people who kept it alive. Even declawed by time, the Yule Cat still leaves a shadow on the snow, and that shadow sets the perfect stage for one last chilling look at its legacy. Whether you picture the Yule Cat as a towering shadow against the snow or as a myth softened by centuries of retelling, there's something undeniably magnetic about this creature. It represents a memory of what winter once demanded: effort, gratitude, community, and the understanding that survival was a shared responsibility. A simple garment could mean warmth, safety, pride, and in the world of this legend, your very life. And maybe that's why the Yule Cat still lingers in our imagination. Even stripped of its original terror, it carries that faint echo of old fears, the kind that creep in when the nights grow long and the cold presses against the window. You can almost feel those glowing eyes scanning the dark, searching for the one person who didn't quite prepare. Luckily, today the only thing stalking you is your holiday to-do list, but still, maybe say yes to the socks this year, just in case. Thank you so much for watching, and if you enjoyed wandering through this frosty corner of folklore with me, feel free to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and drop a comment telling me which winter legend you want to explore next. Until then, stay warm, stay curious, and please, keep something new in your wardrobe. You never know who's prowling around out there.